You know what is interesting about the parable of the two builders? Most people hear it and think, it is about the storm. It is not about the storm. The storm is just the revealer. The real story happens long before the first raindrop falls. And I want to show you something in this passage that I think will completely change how you read it. Let me take you to Matthew 7. Jesus said, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." Now let me ask you something. Did you notice what Jesus did not say? He did not say the foolish builder never heard the truth. He heard it. He did not say the foolish builder disagreed with the teaching. He sat under the same words. The only difference, one put it into practice. One did not. Same information, same storm, completely different outcome. Here is what strikes me. Every time I read this passage, the two builders look identical before the storm. If you walked past both houses on a sunny day, you would not be able to tell which one was built on rock and which one was built on sand. Both looked like houses. Both had walls, roofs, doors. Both appeared functional and solid. The difference was underground. The difference was in the foundation. The difference was invisible to the casual observer. And here is why that matters. Your spiritual foundation is being built right now, in the ordinary days, in the quiet seasons, when there is no storm yet, when nobody is watching, when it does not feel urgent. Because by the time the storm arrives, you cannot rebuild the foundation. You build it now. Or you discover you never did. In our next step, we are going to look at the hearing trap, because I think this is where most believers get stuck. We hear well. We receive well. We even feel inspired well. But James has something uncomfortable to say about what happens next. Stay with me. We established that both builders heard the same sermon. The difference was not in what they knew, it was in what they did with what they knew. Today I want to go deeper into why this is so much harder than it sounds. Because James identified something that I think describes most of us more than we are comfortable admitting. James 1:22-23 says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself, goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like." I want you to catch that word, deceive yourselves. Not deceived by the enemy, not deceived by false teaching, self-deceived. The person who hears without doing genuinely believes they are doing something significant by the very act of hearing. They accumulate knowledge and mistake it for transformation. They feel convicted during the sermon and mistake the feeling for actual change. They take notes and mistake the notes for obedience. Sound familiar? I think if we are honest, most of us have been there, including me. God told Ezekiel something that has stayed with me. He said, people come to hear you. The way someone goes to hear a beautiful song. They enjoy the music. They appreciate the skill. They leave feeling something, but they do not do what was spoken. Entertainment mistaken for transformation. Inspiration mistaken for obedience. And I think in our age of Christian podcasts and YouTube sermons and conference messages, this has never been more relevant. We can consume more biblical content than any generation before us and produce less fruit than any generation before us, because hearing feels like doing, but it is not. So let me ask you something direct. Think about the last sermon or teaching that genuinely moved you. Something that you felt was specifically for you, where you thought, I really need to apply this. What did you do with it after you walked out or after you closed the app? Because John 13:17 says, "You will be blessed if you do them, not if you know them, not if you remember them, not if you share them. If you do them, that is the foundation being built, or not being built, In what you do with what you know, after the feeling passes, we have established two things. The foundation is built before the storm, and hearing without doing is self-deception. Now I want to answer the question I have been building toward. What does actually building on the rock look like? Not in a sermon illustration, in your actual life. This week, Luke 6:48 gives us a detail that Matthew's version does not. It says the wise builder dug down deep, not just built on rock, dug down to find the rock. That is important, because the rock is not always on the surface. Sometimes you have to dig through comfortable layers to find the solid foundation. Dig through surface-level religion to find genuine relationship. Dig through religious performance to find honest surrender. Dig through familiar vocabulary to find genuine transformation. Digging is work. It is not comfortable. It is not glamorous. It is not something you photograph. But it is what produces a foundation that cannot be shaken. Let me be specific, because I think we spiritualize this too much and it loses its practical teeth. The sermon on forgiveness becomes rock when you forgive. The specific person you have been refusing to forgive, not when you understand the theology of forgiveness. When you make the phone call, write the message, release the debt. The teaching on generosity becomes rock when you give the specific amount that actually costs you something, not when you agree that Christians should be generous. When you write the check, that makes you feel it. The word on love becomes rock when you love the specific, difficult person in your life right now, not the person who is easy to love, the one who is not the general principle, the specific application. That is what builds the foundation. And Psalm 1 describes the person who does this consistently, like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. The tree does not fight the storm. It simply has roots too deep for the storm to matter. I want to close with something Jesus said that I think we often sanitize. He did not say if the storm comes. He said when the rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew. Past tense, inevitable, certain. Every life faces storms. Every believer faces seasons that test everything. The only question is, what is underneath your house when it arrives? Because you cannot build the foundation in the storm, you build it now. In the ordinary Tuesday, in the daily obedience nobody sees, in the consistent application of what you know to be true, both builders heard the same sermon. One dug deep, one did not. The storm came for both. Only one house stood. Your foundation is being decided right now, not in the storm. What are you building on today?